Welcome to Crunching Tackles, where we break down the hardest hitting social issues in sports. On today's show, we continue to count down to the World Cup with several news stories, and we look at the continued collapse of the Saudi Arabian sports washing regime. My name is Chad Wiley, and with me, as always, is John Nekrasov. John, I thought we could do a little choose your own adventure here at the beginning of the podcast. Would you rather talk briefly about Coachella or fighting sports?
This is not what I expected. I really got left off the hook here. Coachella, obviously.
Okay. What were your thoughts on Justin Bieber's Coachella performances?
I have no thoughts. The thing I noticed was that Justin Bieber has been recharting with like every 2000s hit known to man on the Spotify charts. That one with Nicki Minaj, I'm blanking on the name right now, but like
that would be Beauty and a Beat.
Yeah, Beauty and a Beat was like I think like top 5 this week on the Spotify charts. Like he is absolutely popping right now. So clearly, Coachella has a big pull. That doesn't need to be said necessarily. But I have not watched a single second of Justin Bieber's performances at Coachella. Can you fill us in on what exactly happened?
Well, he headlined both weekends, of course, the beginning and the end. So two full concerts from Justin.
Excellent.
I thought that what he did was very interesting by playing like a lot of his own YouTube videos on stage and then just singing to like the backtracking of his own music videos as an artist who was primarily like discovered on YouTube. I thought that was interesting. He also did go down a couple like funny YouTube rabbit holes and just started playing like random clips of like memes that he liked for like 5 minutes, which I thought was really funny. It felt very relatable, just getting sucked down the dark web. At weekend 2, of course, he sang his classic song "One Less Lonely Girl" and brought out Billie Eilish as the One Less Lonely Girl. It's just nice, it's I think that for me, I would say that for any person who is currently between the ages like 30 and 20, I think there just is like a very real nostalgia about hearing early, like first 3 album Justin Bieber, whether it's like One Time, whether it's Love Me, whether it's Baby, of course, Never Say Never. I mean, I could continue. Favorite Girl, One Time. There just are a lot of like, songs that like take you back to like when you were roller skating with your friends in middle school and high school. And like, these were the songs of, in many ways, the songs of, I'll speak for me, my childhood. I don't know if not your childhood, but.
Well, I was gonna say that, or really ask, what does my lack of nostalgia about any of these songs mean about me in my childhood? But
I think it means that you just didn't have a Pandora account growing up. Like
really, maybe what it would mean was that I wasn't roller skating around, with my friends, in middle school and high school. Maybe I just didn't have very many, which is probably true. I was too busy. I was too busy watching Lionel Messi highlights in my living room.
But yeah, I mean, like
I missed out.
Roller skating with friends and like just listening to pop radio was like a big part of like that's how it was.
It sounds like a much freer childhood. Much freer childhood than what I had.
Yeah. So yeah, that's 2 quick minutes on Coachella.
I did see that there was at least a cameo of Liberty University's Campus Collective in one of those videos. I'm pretty sure that he shared, which is
cool.
I think I saw that somewhere. So I was like,
that's
wow,
great.
That's a nice little shout out. Yeah, I do think obviously he has a lot of bangers.
Yeah.
Retroactively, I have grown to love them.
His songs are very good.
Them at the time. Yeah.
Well, yeah, most middle school and high school boys did not think it was cool to like Justin Bieber when Justin Bieber was first coming out. Retroactively, I think most of his discography has been largely embraced. Those first 3 albums are like kind of perfect pop hit albums. And, he did he shouldered the weight, like the same amount of fandom by himself as One Direction split among 5 different people. Like that's,
that is
he
true.
really was like the guy. Like
he's a seminal pop icon. That's just that is just true.
Yeah. So there's that. That's briefly on the fighting sports thing, John. We're not going to talk about this again. I don't think ever. But of course, everyone is aware of the the UFC fight that's going to happen on the White House lawn as part of the 250th anniversary of America. But there are two other fights that are happening this year that are both happening on Netflix, and I'm wondering which one of these. Obviously, you're not going to watch either of them, but from a storyline perspective, which one of these two fights is more interesting to you? Former UFC star Ronda Rousey fighting former Disney star Gina Carano in a mixed martial arts fight in May of this year on Netflix, or Floyd Mayweather putting his 50-0 record on the line in a rematch against Manny Pacquiao in September, both of whom are like well over 50 years old, but doing a real professional fight that is on the record in September.
Is Manny really over 50?
I believe. I'm gonna double check that right now.
Let's fact check that real time. While you do that, I'm gonna vamp.
47. Sorry.
Okay, but still pretty old.
Close.
Both of these are both equally appealing to me and also equally completely unappealing, is what I would say. I think for entertainment factor, I mean, like, have Mayweather and Pacquiao ever boxed?
Yes, they boxed one time, like in their prime. It was the most, like, really like the most anticipated fight of all time.
Right.
And Floyd won a decision. It went the distance, and Floyd won a decision fight against Pacquiao.
But we've already seen that, so I think Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano is the obvious choice. Soon to be Daily Wire star, I believe.
Yeah.
Along with Jonathan Majors. Who fell out of a window while filming.
That didn't happen.
Yeah, I think that I'm just intrigued by the result of that one. So I'm gonna go with that one, just for entertainment value.
All right. Those were it for my spontaneous surprises. We can get on to the actual podcast. I have to keep you guessing around here.
I have a choose your own adventure choice for you.
Yes.
Which musician biopic are you more excited for in roughly 30 years? Taylor, about Taylor Swift's upcoming wedding to Travis Kelce, or Justin, the Justin Bieber film?
Like, by miles, Justin Bieber. I don't think a Taylor Swift movie would be interesting at all. Like, I think she is very interesting, but she's also like the most like well-branded, non-controversial, just like not vanilla is I don't mean vanilla in a negative sense, just like there is almost no controversy at all surrounding Taylor Swift.
Sorry, let me I just came up with that on the spot. Let's take Taylor out because you're right. Justin, with his troubled past at times, or also 2020's icon, Kanye.
Ooh.
The Kanye West biopic. Obviously in light of the Michael film that is coming out right now. These are the real questions that we ask on this show before we get into this. We haven't talked to any sports at all right now.
I would say that... Are
you Googling right now? What could you be Googling?
Well, I'm trying to think. That was it? Well, the part that I would like to see is am I right that when there was in one of Kanye West's anti-Semitic moments, wasn't he like, as an apology, didn't he like go to a concentration camp with like a famous person to like visit?
I feel like that did happen.
That's what I'm trying.
I could be Mandela affecting that right now as well.
Because I would like to see that pictured in a movie. The Kanye West anti-Semitic apology tour would be a very funny, would be just a very interesting movie. I think in general, I would still say Justin Bieber, just because I don't find like Kanye West has gone from the point of like, this is kind of like unhinged in a funny way to like, this is unhinged in like a deeply like morally disturbing way that could make for a good movie.
But like Kanye directed by Josh Safdie,
I'd be interested in that. I would be interested in that.
It would be an experience.
I would be interested in that.
Just putting that out into the universe. Obviously, we do not condone anything Kanye West says on this show. But, maybe it would be a lesson for moviegoers on what to avoid in their personal lives.
There are many things that need to be avoided in terms of Kanye West. So yeah, I would say in terms of what I would like to watch, Justin Bieber, but like what has the chance to like be the fully like method acted, like deeply like troubled movie that like often gets Oscar bait, it would of course be the Kanye biopic.
Yeah, we're not going to ask who gets cast as Kanye West. That's not a question we need to answer.
I'm not going to do that.
No.
John, I think that we're stalling out a little bit here because you want to avoid our first topic.
That's just today. True. That's why I came up with this extra topic. I don't want to talk about it. But I did put it on the rundown.
Yeah, our first topic is the current state of the Premier League race. On Sunday, we're recording this on Tuesday, April 21st. On Sunday, what many people dubbed the championship deciding match took place. And Manchester City beat Arsenal 2-1. And you were, to put it nicely, pessimistic before the game and quite despondent afterward. And as much as this podcast can be a place of therapy and healing, I would like to just open the floor to your emotions and your thoughts in this safe space among just friends, close friends here on the internet. And we can all work through this moment with you and maybe come to a place of acceptance and, more importantly, healing. And I would like to bring that to the space.
I appreciate that. Those are really kind words. Unfortunately, I don't have any kind words to say about where we're at. And I feel a little bit bad about that because there are lots of Arsenal fans. We really haven't talked about this title race very much on this show this year. I feel like we've touched on it occasionally. It may be because I'm superstitious and don't want to talk about it as much as possible, to avoid jinxing it. But the reality is, this project has been ongoing. Arsenal have finished second for the last 3 years in a row. In the 22-23 season, they led for a large amount of the year, had a ton of injuries, and they played Manchester City, lost 4-1, and fell apart down the stretch. That was a younger team. That was a different team. There were not a lot of veterans in that squad, or the veterans that were there maybe were not quite up to par. The season after went right down to the wire. We lost on the final day of the season, just didn't quite get it over the line. But we pushed. And the season after that, Liverpool won, and we were a distant second. This year, again, we've led the majority of the year, basically all the way up until now. We still technically are ahead, but City play Burnley tomorrow with the chance to go top on goal difference. And I don't know, we lost to City in the Carabao Cup a few weeks ago now, 2-0. It was a completely dominant performance by them. We didn't look like a good team at all. And I think my reflection, and I'm here, you're an external party here, so I want you to talk completely objectively. My reflection has been on this specific iteration of Arsenal that there are good players in this team. There is a very solid defensive backbone. But I watch the team, I think it's okay in any sport for you to have a defensive focused team that grinds out results to win. But in any sport, you do have to put points on the board in some way to actually win games. You can't win games. Seattle in the NFL was a defensively dominant team, but they were not only defense, right? When it counted, they diced you up all over the field. And they had multiple ways to do it. And they made basically every team they played in the playoffs look ridiculous, based both on defense and on offense. Arsenal to me feels like a team that is built on not making mistakes. It's built on not giving unnecessary ground away to their opponents. But it's a team that lacks a cutting edge, specifically offensively. And I just think that, I don't know if it's Arteta's fault as the manager, and that's kind of what I'm curious what your opinion is. But to me, I see it as a team that can't control the ball on offense in relaxed games. It can't up the tempo in possession, and it can't even play on the counterattack because the players that it counterattacks with, quite frankly, aren't good enough to counterattack against an actually good side, and you can see the difference with Manchester City players with their clinicality when they get a attacking break to score. I don't know. I think I look at this game and where we're at, and I think like there have been so many points thrown away this season that we didn't need to be in this position at all. But we're in this position where we lost against Man City because this team lacks a cutting edge, and it got exposed against a team that's actually good ultimately. I don't know.
Yeah,
those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I agree with you, and the way I would phrase it is that Arsenal are set up to draw every single game 0-0.
Yes.
And then they rely on set pieces to get the edge. And, in a game where there are and there are certain ways in which you can try to engineer set pieces. Obviously, a lot of that is just kind of random how many you get. Obviously, the more pressure and the more attacks you put in, the more set pieces you will get. But the moniker of like Arsenal as set piece FC was an interesting joke for the first half of the season. But in the second half of the season became something that Arsenal was so heavily reliant on that it almost seemed like they could only score from set pieces rather than from open play. And I think what you've diagnosed to me is aligned with what my eyes see, which is a team that is not able to break down worst quality teams when they have a lot of possession. They are not good enough to counterattack when they are kind of backs to the goal and defending heavily against a team like City or a team like Liverpool that will really take it to them. And if you can't do either of those, what do you have left? All you have left are corners and free kicks. And they have scored a lot of corners and they have scored a lot of free kicks, whether
but
direct or
I mean, since January, like it's dried up. That's
right, not the second half of the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to me, like I think that what Mikel Arteta has built has been admirable. I think he's recruited quality players for the most part, but I believe, manages scared. And I don't think scared managers win trophies. Like, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, say what you want about like I've been a United fan. We've played under some pretty negative managers in my time, not the least of which is Jose Mourinho. But like when there was another team, when the opposing team had a corner kick, they had to get back fast because if United got the ball, they were going to come flying at you. And there was like just a level of like clinicalness that people like, that Rashford and Pogba and Juan Mata and players like that brought to that team that Arsenal just does not have. Even when they get the ball back in possession with with the opposing team out of position, they still stick with this like slow, tedious buildup. And then when they are pressed, and not to get too specific here, like this isn't a soccer tactics podcast, but when they are pressed, they often are completely unable to pass out of it. And you see Raya just committing a lot of long balls that result in turnovers. I think that happens at an extremely high rate compared to other top European sides where they will not even try to pass out of pressure and will instead just turn the ball over in the midfield.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's interesting though, is it's like, to me, that is an issue with this specific iteration of the Mikel Arteta project. I think he has, in a Pep Guardiola style way, overcorrected the fact that the team was kind of a bit of a pushover at times. And so he's overcorrected by basically making the team play and maybe adding in players who aren't as efficient in retaining possession, and instead has a team that is very defensively and physically solid, but actually can't, like, surprisingly for an Arsenal team, can't keep the ball. And that's just, to me, it's okay if you're a Jose Mourinho team if you have a rapid offensive threat. The teams that Jose had that did not have that, he got sacked from very fast, because ultimately you're not going to win anything. Like, negativity alone does not win you games. So yeah, I mean, I see some similarities, honestly, between like my thoughts on John Shire over at Duke and my thoughts on Mikel Arteta. I think they're both really smart, ultimately likable guys, but who are really good at managing certain aspects of the game but feel like they are not in their current form able to coach players to actually have like a cutting edge winner's mentality. And it's not just like a mentality thing. It is like to me, Arsenal is also like not being coached well and also not figuring out the ways in games, like for the players to break down what it looks like to actually like just like will their way to winning a game. And real championship sides do that. Like I think Mikel Arteta will win a major trophy in his career. I do think he is like a genuinely really solid coach. But I am worried about if we let the league slip away and lose to Atletico in the semifinals. Like I'm worried about where the project goes from here because I just can't imagine these players have a ton in the tank to do it all over again. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at. I don't know.
I don't want to hold your feet to the fire like too much just for like getting a clip, but like will part of you be disappointed if he's the manager in August? Are you there? Are you not there yet?
No, because I always just ask like who is going to do a better job? Like we're second in the league. You know, if we lose the City, which I hope we don't, you know, there's still, you know,
yeah, we are talking about the season like it's over.
Still all to play for. I feel like I've seen us let things in this exact situation slip away before. And it's hard for me to look at this and be like, yeah, I see us winning every single game and City dropping points. It could happen. And you know, that'll be the difference maker in this narrative about Arteta and all these players. But the narrative is not going to change until you win. Like that's the end of the road is like sports are about winning. And if you want to be known as a winner, you got to win. Like I don't care about the excuses about, you know, oh, we hit the post. Oh, we almost had a chance. Oh, we played positive. Like it doesn't matter. Dan Hurley is not going to accept that. You know, Alex Ferguson certainly didn't. Carlo Ancelotti certainly didn't. You know, Bill Belichick certainly didn't. Like in the end, at this level of sports, anything other than winning is not acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, of course, and it's fine if you lose. It's fine, but you're not a winner.
You know, there's still much to play for you. The Champions League is still very much, you know, in play. That you are certainly not out of the Premier League title race yet. But regardless of either of those, John, there is certainly one silver lining to this season.
There is a wonderful silver lining.
And that is that your rival club of the North London Derby, which is Tottenham, are having just one of the all-time disaster seasons that a big club has ever faced. Are they on their fourth manager in this season? Third or fourth?
At least third.
Third. I never remember who started managing Tottenham.
It was Ange, right?
It was Ange.
Or did Ange get fired?
No, he got fired early. He started the season, I believe.
So they didn't fire him right after the Europa League? I can't remember.
Let me look. You talk about Tottenham for a second, and I'll get this detail right.
Yeah, so Tottenham Hotspurs are the funniest club in world sports right now. And it really is like the Arsenal-Tottenham experience together is just a magical combo. If we win the league and Tottenham gets relegated, that is a double to me. Like that really matters. It is a team that just is completely devoid of everything. They have no passion, they have no aggression, and they have no mindset, as one YouTuber once so famously said. Like it is just every single game you watch, there are flashes where you're like, okay, these are good players. And then it just all falls apart every single time. This weekend, they let in like a last second equalizer to Brighton. They are a hopeless unit right now. And like, to me at this point, are they 2 points below?
Yeah. 2 points below relegation.
Yeah. 2 points below West Ham, who are playing better than them. And to me, like, I think they're going to get relegated. Like, I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, Roberto De Zerbi is the third manager this season, although their first manager this season, this was also his first season because, like you mentioned, at the very end of last season, Ange was fired in the summer. So in July, Thomas Frank came in, and then he was fired, and then Tudor, and then now we're at De Zerbi.
I literally forgot Thomas Frank was even at the
start of the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll talk about like I think, over the summer, if this happens, we could talk a little bit more specifically about what's going to happen to Tottenham as a quote unquote big club if they are actually in the championship. We have an interesting comparison in Leicester City, who won the Premier League 10 years ago and now have been relegated not just once, but as of today, now twice, down 2 tiers in English football. But what I would say about Tottenham, just as a reaction, I one thing I go really back and forth on is like, is their roster actually good or not? Because like when you look at their roster compared to the other quote unquote big six teams, it's certainly clear that they just do not have the actual just pure talent to compete. But do they even have do they have a roster that should be in your mind like a mid-table side compared to like teams like Brighton or Sunderland or like teams that, Palace, teams that are consistently somewhere between 8th and 12th in the Premier League? Because sometimes I look at the Tottenham roster and I'm genuinely like, who are these guys? Like, I don't even know who you are.
I think unquestionably they have a mid-table roster. Like, they are not a big club currently. But, I mean, these players are capable of things. Like, they just won the Europa League last year. Like, these are not, like, garbage players. Dominic Solanke was quite good at Bournemouth. There is the reality that, like, Spurs have been in one of the worst injury crises that I've literally ever seen. Like, there have been times where they have closed, like, a full first-team 11 that has been out injured for, like, long periods of time. Most of their attacking talent has been injured for a lot of the year. I feel like Dejan Kulusevski has like not played at all. James Maddison hasn't played at all. Like really talented backbone players that do matter, but the rest of the players are good enough that like they've been playing in the Premier League for a long time. They should not be in the mix with Burnley and Wolves. Like that is just the reality. These players are expensive. Dominic Solanke cost a lot of money. So to me, like it is just a drastic underperformance. Richarlison started for Brazil in the World Cup 4 years ago. Like he could play considerable minutes at the World Cup this year. And that's just to me is evidence of it's not just a poorly run club, which it is, but it's a poorly managed club and a poorly played club. Like these players don't want to play for this team. And as an Arsenal fan, that does bring me a small sliver of joy because it's just heartwarming.
Yeah.
We thrashed them 2 games in a row.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think Tottenham going down would be one of the most significant people who have been part of our podcast for a while. Remember when we were reacting to the ill-fated but no less real potential idea of a super league that happened a few years ago that never actually materialized. And Tottenham were like part of the European Super League. They were part of like, what was it? Was it 30 teams? I don't remember how many teams were included, but this Super League of elite European teams who were going to dominate world football. And now Tottenham might be in the second tier of English football next year. That is a far way to plunge in such a brief amount of time. And we're going to, of course, have to continue to watch the story. I mean, to me, like, if we get to decision day, which is May, I don't remember what day in May it is. It's toward the middle or end of May.
End of May, yeah.
End of May. If we get to the end of May and like the final day of the season and like the title is still up in the air and the Spurs relegation is up in the air, I might be watching the Spurs game just for fun because like it's going to be really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is Tottenham were in the Champions League final like 7 years ago. And they are genuinely in a relegation battle. Normally we talk about like, it's always like a banter thing, like Manchester United or Chelsea are like, bring in a new manager, are struggling for form. And all of a sudden they're like 12th, which has happened multiple times over the last few years. And then we're like, is this a relegation battle? How bad are they? Is this a real crisis? And then we're all like, of course, they're not in that much of a crisis. So I think the reality of Spurs being genuinely in the relegation battle, in the relegation zone this late in the season is just like, it's shocking. It has happened before in soccer, in the English league to this degree. I feel like at least at some point. But in our lifetime as fans, nothing like this has ever happened.
To be fair, Tottenham did finish one position above relegation.
Well, that's what's crazy.
Yeah, they were 17th last year.
But the gap, I think, was considerably bigger between them and
13 points. It was 13 points. Yeah.
It didn't feel like they were ever really in danger. We were just like, that was a terrible year. This time, they just have been bad since like the first month of the year.
Yeah.
And just have never stopped being bad. So
yeah,
it's an interesting league. I think it's, we'll know exactly where we stand in about a month. And odds are I'm going to be a very sad man, but you never know.
Yeah. I mean, John, speaking of how quickly a team or a player's fortunes can change, 2 years ago, we were wondering, will Rory McIlroy ever win a Masters?
That's just elite podcasting. What a transition. Just golf clap right there.
Appreciate that. And not only has he won one, he has now gone back-to-back. He is a 2-time Masters champion.
For only the fourth time ever.
Yeah, he's the fourth person to win back-to-back Masters. Do you want to go through the list?
Yeah, it's Nick Faldo, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods, and now Rory McIlroy.
And Rory.
Like,
I don't. Yeah,
our guy.
I don't have a whole lot to say about this particular iteration of the Masters. Obviously, if you had asked me on Friday, at the end of day Friday, when Rory McIlroy was 6 shots ahead of the second place person at -12, if the Masters was over, I would have said yes. And ultimately, of course, that was true. But by the end of day Saturday, it seemed like it was all falling apart for Rory, who dropped all 6 shots in the third round and was tied going into Sunday, and then held on to take care of business. I just continue to be very happy for our guy, patron of the PGA Tour and hero of the pod. So shout out to Rory.
Owner of World Golf. At this point, we're going to get to Saudi sports a little bit later in this show. I think we said at the beginning. But Rory McIlroy he's having a year. He's having a couple of years, which is delightful. I do think he clearly is playing with a lot of freedom, having finally gotten the monkey off his back of never winning the Masters. But I do think it's also deeply funny that he had to win it in a Rory McIlroy way.
It can never be anything different.
Yeah, by making things incredibly difficult for himself. Yeah. Scotty Scheffler, also shout out to him, who was like leagues behind at the beginning. After really struggling, by Sunday, pulled himself, I think, within 2 strokes of Rory's eventual championship score, which is, good for our other guy. So
yeah. Golf is great.
Golf is great.
2 quick things I want to get to. The NBA and NHL playoffs have both started. We're going to talk about these more in more detail. Just two quick headlines that I want to note as someone who is interested in this. And as we get into May and June, we'll talk about this more thoroughly. On the NBA front, Victor Wembanyama became the first player in NBA history to win the unanimous Defensive Player of the Year award. And he might also win MVP. And the San Antonio Spurs might just win an NBA championship this year. Like, I think it's worth noting, like, how uniquely gifted and how great he is and how awesome it is that we get to watch basketball in the era of Victor Wembanyama. When Spurs games are as must-see TV as anything on television right now when he's on the court.
I mean, I feel like he's like French Gumby, just with those like gangly arms. It's like, yeah, he still reminds me of that alien that shows up at the end of Alien Romulus. I feel like he could have been that. He could have like done the motion capture for that thing. Yeah. He is just a physical like freak of a human being, and like in the most complimentary way possible. Like I just don't understand. Normally, I feel like when you have someone who is that tall, they are not like able to be athletic enough to also genuinely be like an NBA All-Star. Like I feel like it's really hard to like not even discipline, but like get your body to be nimble enough to outplay all these smaller, faster players. It just feels like he can do everything. Like he's phenomenally talented in every like technical way, and then he's just huge. Like if he can do everything, like what do you in a game like basketball? Like what are you supposed to do? I do hope that Nikola Jokic beats the Timberwolves so we can have a Jokic Wemby conference semifinal.
That'd be elite.
That would be a delightful experience,
that
which still
so
could happen. If the Lakers beat the Rockets, we could have a Bronny James versus SGA battle in the conference semifinals as well.
I'm sorry, did you say LeBron James? Did you say Bronny James?
I said Bronny James. Yeah, you heard me.
Get your popcorn, guys. Man. I mean, gosh. It is interesting to note that like Bronny James did play playoff minutes and the Lakers are up 1-0. I'm turning into soccer. 1-0 against the Rockets without their second, or arguably their first and their second best players, depending on where you think of LeBron this season. But both Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic out for at least the beginning of the playoffs. At least Luka is optimistic that he might be able to return to the playoffs in some capacity, but we'll see about that. John, really quickly on the NHL, I just want to hit on one story that I think is really interesting. For several years, for at least the last couple years, the Pittsburgh Penguins have been in a decline, to put it mildly. They have just not been playing well, and their team was getting very old. They had a coaching change. They had a new GM come in. The core of their team remained intact, but the results just weren't coming. But the Penguins made it to the second seed in their division and made the playoffs. And this might be kind of the end of the road for them, but it's just worth mentioning that Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang have broken the record for teammates, a trio of teammates who have played the longest together. Those three have played for the Pittsburgh Penguins for 20 years together.
That's crazy.
All three of them. And that's never happened in any American professional team sport. And so if this is the end of an era, it is like they have been like a real institution of hockey for literally 2 decades, literally 20 years. And so whether they end here in the first round, they are down 2-0 to the Flyers right now in this opening round of the playoffs. So things are not looking good. But regardless of what happens, it's just worth, I think, giving some honor and some credit to, three teammates who have been together for essentially my entire sports watching life and have won multiple Stanley Cups together and have had just a tremendous amount of success. So it's a very cool accomplishment that they've been able to keep that together.
For sure. Very much so. And also just a brief note, I have not, when we do a more focused NBA show at some point, we'll have to dig into this more, but I did see a headline and it makes intuitive sense to me that the NBA's shift to major streaming services is paying off well in terms of getting viewers to actually start paying attention. All of the games, there's in this first round, there are 2 games that are in this next round of games streaming on ESPN. And the rest of them are all streaming on Peacock and Prime. And that's an interesting move for the NBA because it means that they're trying to spread things away from linear TV toward places where people are paying for streaming services. And those are just readily available to people. So I'm curious to see if that will, over the long run, reap dividends for the NBA in terms of bringing viewers back.
Of course, the introduction of the NBA playoffs on Amazon Prime was a complete disaster. I don't know if you're aware of this, John.
I think I heard vaguely about it.
The play-in game between the Miami Heat and the Charlotte Hornets that I was watching live, the entire final minute of overtime was blacked out. So like literally the screen cut out with a minute left in overtime, and when the screen came back in, they were doing the game was over. And so it was a just truly horrific debut for Amazon Prime in terms of their playoff coverage, but I believe that things have recovered and stabilized to a certain degree since then.
That's so funny, especially given that they've done tons of other sports. Like they do NFL coverage. Yeah. Like what in the world?
I mean, certainly like a weird, not obviously, a weird glitch. There's no big story to be taken from this in terms of sabotage, but
right.
It was, a very disappointing thing that I watched live and was not enjoying.
Deeply humorous. Speaking of disasters, I'm going to provide a little transition for us. Do we want to talk about where we're at with the World Cup? Because we're very excited about the World Cup.
Yeah,
let's be clear.
This is World Cup. This is World Cup season, and I would love for you to kind of walk us through just where we are at in the state of the news and the state of the world as we are now less than 2 months away from the beginning of the world's tournament.
That's exactly right. We are 51 days away on April 21st from the World Cup starting on June 11th, which is just thrilling.
Yeah.
Like, I am so excited. World Cup fever is on me. That being said, FIFA and the collective governments of these United States are doing their very best to dampen my World Cup fever and the fever of basically every fan that is coming to the US or that lives in the US currently. And I just find that very disappointing. Yeah, it continues to blow my mind how much money FIFA is attempting to wrangle out of this event. Per The Athletic, FIFA is projected to make, or FIFA is projecting itself to make, roughly $11 billion over the course of this tournament, with a budget of $3.6 billion, which is just insane. Thinking about how much a sporting event of this scale costs in these three countries is just astonishing. They're obviously projected to make an enormous profit as an organization, which again, just beggars belief. They claim that they're investing all that money back into the world's game and grassroots development, which is just manifestly, obviously not true, and we all know it. But this is causing problems because something that I wasn't really super aware of is that FIFA is basically taking over the infrastructure for this tournament wherever it's going. They basically make a contract with the cities and the stadiums where games are going to be held. And then FIFA basically takes over, parking, ticketing, fan merch, the whole 9 yard. Everything game related goes to FIFA. The cities do not get a cent of that money in most instances. And so in the case of New Jersey, where games are being held in MetLife Stadium, Governor Mikey Sherrill is very angry. She took over from the previous governor in this last election cycle. She did not sign on to the World Cup being in New Jersey, and clearly wants everyone to know that she did not sign up for it. And so public transportation in New Jersey to MetLife Stadium has become an absolute disaster. They are charging for a train ride from New York City to MetLife that normally costs $13. Tickets have gone up to $150, which is it blows my mind. FIFA has closed essentially the entire, all the parking lots to the stadium. So fans can't park. They have no option but to basically pay $150 to even get to the game on game day. Obviously, American fans are used to paying a lot, but I feel like even that is exorbitant to all of us. And the reality is transportation to games in Russia in 2018, in Qatar in 2022, and in Germany in 2024 in the Euro was free for fans with tickets. So yeah, maybe we can just start there. Cheryl basically said that FIFA isn't giving New Jersey any money, and basically says that, because FIFA isn't giving New Jersey money to compensate for their infrastructure interruptions, they're not going to, quote, shift the burden of payment to the taxpayers of New Jersey. So instead, they're going to make all the fans pay for it. And I don't know. I guess my question to you would be, do you buy that as a starting point? Obviously, there's the whole FIFA angle here, but do you buy that, or is the New Jersey governor just trying to get money?
Well, I mean, certainly the New York governor is trying to ruin the experience of sports fans to make a political point that I find quite odorous of an alleged public servant to treat fans' experiences that way. You're playing with the real lives of real people who are trying to plan their once in a lifetime dream trip to a sporting event. and you're going to play with that for political posturing. I find that just completely sickening on a personal level. I saw that
strong words from Chad Wiley.
Not to be too strong about it.
Yeah.
I saw that Chuck Schumer, a senator from New York now, is calling on FIFA to cover the entire $150 transit fare, which my response is, why can't we just not charge extra for the fare? Like, why can't we just keep things normal? Like, does the state of New Jersey want to be viewed as more financially greedy than the nation of Qatar or the nation of Russia? Like, that's something you have to sit with as a government. I can't make that choice for you, but is that what you want to be? That's the level of greed you want to be at. You want to exploit fans in a way that even Qatar and Russia wouldn't do. That's on you. I find much of what is going on in and around this World Cup completely sickening. By FIFA, by the federal government, also by Mikey Sherrill in the state of New Jersey. I am 100% opposed to this idea.
It's quite poor behavior. For example, for comparison, Kansas City in general is pretty much eating the cost of public transportation for most fans. Getting around the entire city, there's very cheap bus fare to get around. Philadelphia is keeping fares the same for most public transport and giving all fans free travel leaving the games at Lincoln Financial Field, I think it's called. This is not a necessary choice. Boston is, of course, raising prices to $80 from the normal $20.
Completely unsurprised by that as well.
But all I'm going to say here, without getting too many people coming after me, is these choices are being made by Boston and New Jersey, and we don't really need to think too deeply.
Wow, geographic slander. I thought I was coming in hot.
No, I'm swinging for the fences. A southern city would never.
Yeah. I mean, it's the actual. If we looked at the budget of the state of New Jersey as a whole, the actual cost is somewhat marginal, right? It's going to cost $48 million for the World Cup to operate in New Jersey total. And of course, FIFA is not contributing to that. That is a problem. And I think it's fair that New Jersey raises that problem. But if your solution to a problem is to make the problem evident by charging ordinary people more, I don't respect you.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Negotiate with FIFA or the federal government, in my mind.
Or eat the cost and be a public servant. Serve the public. Eat the cost.
Right. And all of a sudden now the government is worried about our budget.
Yeah, right. Yeah. For the first time, something has cost the government too much.
Which obviously, FIFA has claimed that total revenue for the U.S. will increase by $30 billion over the World Cup.
Which, by the way, is true.
It may be true. I don't know what the real economic projection of, but there will be countless fans coming to the States who will buy tons of things. It is a net benefit. And if you treat it as not that way, then you're not going to get to host these things again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't prove to you that exact number is true, but in terms of restaurants, hotels, the American economy as a whole is going to be significantly benefited by this World Cup. That's Absolutely. Just an objective truth.
Well, the funny thing is, going back to Boston for a little bit, Gillette Stadium has basically come out and banned tailgating, and then blamed FIFA. This is a really funny story. They blamed FIFA and said, per FIFA policy, no tailgating will be allowed at the World Cup. And then FIFA was like, well, we didn't say that. It'll be a case-by-case basis kind of thing. So yet again, Boston is just in hot water. There was this, I didn't do all the full reading ahead of time on this story because it happened a while back, but I'm just remembering now that Boston basically didn't have funding for their World Cup hosting and barely got it over the line relatively recently. I can't remember if we talked about this at all, but
no.
Even their entire hosting status in Boston was in serious doubt for a certain period of time because I think the town that Gillette is in basically was we literally cannot pay for any of the infrastructure that the city of Boston is requiring of us. So they worked it out in the end. But like the federalism of America in comparison to the nationalized infrastructure of Qatar is actually making this like in weird ways somewhat complicated sometimes, which is just a very American experience.
Yeah, I mean, in Boston's defense, you know, the Scotland and Norwegian fans are very scary.
That's
you
true.
know, both of those teams will be playing twice, and you know those fans are just so frightening that we can't let them have a party before the game. Because again, we can't just ruin the experiences of local tourists who are coming from, you know, on the subway. We also must ruin the experience of international fans who are coming to support their countries.
Of course,
because how else could we do it?
That makes logical sense.
This is America.
It's really unfortunate, and finally, FIFA is basically an answer to the exorbitant ticket prices that are continuing to happen. Like, we are going to a game, Katie and I are, in June, and the cost of those, we bought it before the draw, the cost of those tickets has literally quadrupled what they were when we bought them. Like, it is genuinely astonishing the cost of the most lame games. If you just go spot check on Ticketmaster, the most like boring game imaginable that will be a 0-0 draw between two completely mediocre teams are like over $400.
The cheapest ticket for Qatar, Switzerland is $349 per ticket.
Like, that is like over twice the cost of like a really nice NFL ticket.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's exponentially more expensive than any other World Cup in history, including Qatar or Russia, even on the secondhand market.
And the sickening thing is Gianni Infantino basically said, like, number one, this is not going to American cities. This is all going to FIFA. And Gianni Infantino has basically said, in answer to the really expensive prices, we just have the opportunity to host amazing games in a really expensive market. I'm like, you are making it expensive. Like, this is literally all you. And if the stadiums are an absolute dud experience come the summer, then we'll know who to blame, because the Club World Cup was exactly like this.
I like to do a periodic check-in when we podcast, just in real time, just on some tickets. John, if you want to watch Brazil versus Morocco on Saturday, June 13th at interestingly at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, you can sit in the top corner section 307 for a very affordable $2,305 a ticket. In the back corner of the stadium, $105, that's before taxes, per ticket.
Like, who can afford that? Like, are we just going to have like a bunch of billionaires filling the stadium?
Apparently.
Like, there aren't enough.
This has been like one of the, we talk about a lot of like very, very like serious moral issues on this podcast. So I don't want to be hyperbolic, but in terms of my personal emotions, this is one of the most personally frustrating things we have talked about in the history of this podcast. What the price gouging that is happening with this World Cup is absolutely infuriating on every level, and it makes me sick.
Yeah. I mean, it is not the same as plenty of the deeply immoral things that we talk about, obviously, but it is the purest form of business greed on display for the entire world to see. And, you know, I don't know what that's going to result in. Like, the Club World Cup was the most drab thing known to man, because they did try to overprice all the tickets, and then they ended up having to like sell them for like, to fill the stadiums out and not look terrible, for like, you know, $5 a ticket at college cafeterias nearby. Demand for the World Cup is obviously higher than that. So like, I don't know what's going to actually happen here, but it's depressing in the end. Like, this is not a tournament that's being held for the fans. No one is considering the fans. And like, that's the whole point, you know? And that just makes me sad, because I think this could have been an opportunity for the US to like have a party with the rest of the world. Like, that's what this whole thing is about. Like, the revenue is going to come into the cities regardless. And the ticket money is not going to the cities anyway. It's not going to the organizers. So like, why America is just allowing this to happen is obviously, it's incredibly disappointing. But hopefully this will be fun. But it's just,
the average group stage ticket for a non-resident in 2022 in Qatar was around $70. And for the 2026 World Cup, it is around $305 per ticket. That's a 4-year difference, and that's an oil state versus America.
What more do you say?
Yeah, it's really bad. Lots more to come on this, John. Lots more to come. To close out on some slightly happier news. Speaking of some oil states that are potentially in crisis, a few weeks ago we talked about just some indications that Saudi Arabia might be starting to lose its power over the sports world. That conversation that we had was initiated by Brooks Koepka announcing that he was leaving the LIV Golf and returning to the PGA Tour. And in more recent news, and right around the time of the Masters this last week, some serious reporting started to come through that like the future of LIV Golf is in imminent danger, that the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund is considering and or already has pulled out a significant amount of its financial backing from LIV. And subsequently, through our own research, we're realizing that Saudi Arabia is starting to just pull a lot of its financial backing out of many of its sporting enterprises. And so we would like to just take a few minutes here and just talk about what is happening and what it means maybe for the future of sports, and also kind of what it means for the success or failure of this sports washing regime that Saudi Arabia has attempted and seemingly is starting to fail. Would it be crazy for me to say, John, that the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia is like waving the white flag in some ways?
I mean, I think so. I think this is very much a Dhoni-like business decision. Ultimately, that's coming down the pipeline from Mohammed bin Salman and from the PIF, or Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, which has a net worth of roughly $1 trillion, some estimates say. So there's a lot of money in there. But the reality is, so I did kind of a bunch of reading in The Athletic and ESPN and some other sources as well, kind of around the news and the bubblings around this issue. And what's interesting is MBS basically, in the context of the war with Iran, and along with other financial trends, has kind of started to take a serious look at the enormous amounts of money that Saudi Arabia is spending on sports. This is one of the elements that's just a financial reality. We can get into the details in a little bit, but the reality is a lot of these Saudi sports investments are losing money. Some of them way more than others, but they are not profitable by any means. Up until the war kind of drove oil prices up for a little bit, oil prices were steadily dropping. Obviously, the Saudi Arabia is highly reliant on oil as a major source of income. And Saudi Arabia, interestingly, has been steadily basically taking a step back, apparently, from its huge overseas investments over the last 5 years. Like, they really peaked around 2021 when they, kicked off LIV. They bought Newcastle United, and they've been, still encroaching in other areas, but those were kind of like their big surge was, really kicking off the Saudi Pro League. The PIF bought 4 soccer clubs in Saudi Arabia in their soccer league. And really we're like, we are coming out all guns blazing, and we're going to take over the sports and entertainment world. And it feels like they are taking a very serious look at the fact that those ventures are losing money. The whole weird sci-fi NEOM, like desert sci-fi space city, is not going well and is probably not going to happen. They're still claiming it'll be something, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if the plans for that thing are completely scrapped. you're right. I think the Saudi sports venture is in serious trouble. And I think it's interesting because we talked about this last time as kind of like, is this the end of sports washing as we know it? I think that, I don't know where you want to take this, but like, to me, I think what's most interesting is it just feels like a lot of these sports leagues have just kind of like outlasted the Saudi attempt to like invest in too many things at once. Like, do you think that's what went wrong here?
No, not maybe. I mean, I'm not going to say no. My primary takeaway is something different. And my primary takeaway is that the deal that Saudi Arabia was willing to make was investment for popularity. And you can't look at one instance in which they got popularity. Like, and not just that not that they've like overtaken other things, but just like even like growth of popularity. Like, has LIV become at all more popular than when it first started? No. LIV happens and nobody cares. The TV revenue is marginal. The fan attendance is marginal. They're operating at a massive financial loss. They're down like probably over $1 billion of like net losses in revenue since its inception. Is Newcastle more popular? Do you see a lot of Newcastle jerseys when you walk around Nashville, John? Have you seen more Newcastle jerseys than you did when you? No, of course you don't. Like, no. Nobody cares. Are people following Ronaldo and the Saudi Arabia? Where would you even watch Saudi Arabian soccer? I don't know. I never tried. Never had an interest to try. I just don't believe that anything that they have invested in has actually made the sport or the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia more popular in any way. And at some point, if you're putting in money into an equation that is supposed to give you popularity and that's not happening, of course you'd pull your money out because you're not getting any return on your investment. And you mentioned that it's like kind of a cold hard financial decision. It is, but the return on investment didn't have to be financial. It could have been other things. But the reality is there hasn't been any return on investment in any category that is meaningful to these people.
I think it's interesting. Do you feel like the UAE or Qatar have become more popular? I guess Dubai has.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's true. Dubai and Doha have become tourist attractions in a way that, like, I still don't know that Riyadh is exactly the same.
Even and Manchester, there, and Manchester City is like one of the 3 biggest brands in football right now. Like, if you go around an elementary school right now or a middle school and look at soccer jerseys, you're going to see Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Man City. Man City became a brand, a real, legitimate sports brand in terms of like young viewership, as popular as any club in the world.
And obviously PSG as well.
Yeah. And Newcastle hasn't even like sniffed that in any way. Like, I think that like, I don't know if Dubai obviously Dubai is a more popular tourist destination as well, but I think just what they did with Manchester City paid off in just the popularity that Manchester City has now. And I don't see any LIV merch. I don't like it. It's just it hasn't translated for Saudi Arabia in any tangible way.
So your argument would be that like they made bad entertainment investments.
I think so. Yeah, they bought a historic but middling Premier League team and then stopped investing in new players for them. They didn't buy a European team. They just brought players to their team, like to their league. And they took like a couple good players from the PGA, put them in a bad formatted tournament that nobody wants to watch and is not popular on TV, and then filled it in with a bunch of like scrubs. They were super top loaded. They didn't have any like real metric of like consistent talent beyond the top 5 or 6 people. And LIV just never took off in any meaningful way. What the UAE and what other people have done is just buy brands that are already established and make those brands bigger and better. And Saudi Arabia tried something distinctly different, and it has failed.
That's interesting. I think you're hitting on something important, which is the reality that like the UAE and Qatar, in buying PSG and Man City, tried to take one thing and make it really, really good, and then have also expanded it to be they are countries where tourists come, and they're countries where teams come to play. Like other brands come, other brands uplift their brand, which obviously the Saudis are trying to do too. The Saudis are hosting the World Cup in 2034. But I feel like you're right. The Saudis thought of themselves as a bigger player and tried to, as such, remake the sporting landscape in a much more significant way. I think you're right that it didn't really work. Like the LIV and the Saudi Pro League in soccer are their two big projects, and Newcastle they got in too late in the game, which is interesting. Newcastle they have invested a lot of money into it. They've put in more money, according to The Athletic, than every club in the Premier League other than Chelsea and Everton in terms of ownership input, which coincidentally both had Russian oligarch connections at different times in the last 20 years. But what's interesting is that for all of that, because of the Premier League's regulations that have really taken shape over the last 5 years or so, Newcastle has not really been able to make a dent in a significant way where like they could have remade themselves as a brand. Like Newcastle used to be a big brand, a huge brand. But they're obviously not that anymore. They were relegated, they came back. And they weren't able to really bring in like huge megastars. They lost Alexander Isak to Liverpool. They're just a bigger brand, and they haven't really made good use of the money that they have. LIV loses money hand over fist. Players want to leave.
Yeah, but I guess Newcastle's the kind of thing in the long term that I think could have worked out, and that's more consistent with what we've seen other countries do. But like, I don't know if they thought that like a lot of people were going to start going to Saudi Arabia to watch the Saudi Pro League as like a tourist destination.
I think they did. I think they have to have.
I just haven't seen that tangibly happen in any significant way.
No, I mean, no one wants to go. Only the Ronaldos want to go see Ronaldo play in Saudi Arabia at this point, and there just aren't enough of those that are dedicated enough outside of Twitter to like make that journey. I don't know. I think that you're right that it was a gamble too far, but I also think that like I do believe that the Saudis invested a ton here because they wanted to own the entertainment space as a reputational boost. And I think that there's probably a reality to the fact that like the changing nature of the Middle East right now means that it's just like that's less of a priority given how much money they're losing. Like all of a sudden the fact that that they're on the brink of a war with Iran constantly and are trying to like remake the Middle East. They are still hosting the World Cup. And they are still investing money at home and bringing tournaments in, even though their investment is decreasing. And it does seem like they're trying to refocus a little bit. And, if they keep Newcastle, maybe it will just be a more focused portfolio. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them shutter LIV in the next year.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, no, I think you're really right to mention that the political component as relevant to this conversation, because what has happened in the last month is communicate to the Middle East and particularly the Gulf states that like your primary form of revenue is a fairly unstable form of revenue. Like there's nothing that is more impacted by world events than oil prices. Even, all that happens, that's true all the time, but it's especially true when we're like blockading the primary passage of oil in the Middle East. So, and I don't know like the numbers of how much Saudi Arabians like revenue has increased or decreased in this last month with all the oil things going on, but I'm sure it's been significant. And I'm sure that when you see external circumstances impact your finances in such significant and tangible ways, it makes you reevaluate your entire investment portfolio. It is completely relevant that all of these stories, that this LIV story and the things around it are happening during the US-Iran war, during the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, during this significant hike in oil prices and then drop and then hike again. All of that is extremely relevant to why the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is reconsidering their financial priorities right now.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like imagine that your boss comes to you and is like, "Hey, we're losing a ton of money and I might fire you next week." What do you immediately start doing? You stop spending tons of money going to theme parks and buying video games every day. Like you start saying like, "Oh, I need to probably like, maybe like save some money in case I get fired." And I feel like obviously that's kind of a very lighthearted stab at what they're actually doing, because like, they're trying to exert influence over things. It's not just like fun. But at the same time, I do think that like it is an entertainment strategy that is like, we're a fun player and we're trying to like make you not think about everything else we do and be relevant and cool and have tourists come here. And that like matters a whole lot less to you when you have drones, blowing up your skyscrapers every other day. You probably do start thinking about like, maybe since we're losing money anyway, why are we doing this at all?
Yeah, when your Formula One race gets canceled, literally, like I don't know how. I'm sure that was a significant financial hit too.
Yeah, it's interesting because like the UAE,
because that is a real sport. Sorry, that's a real sport that has worked for the Middle East. Is Formula One. When they come and visit, that is a big show, but that just canceled because of other circumstances. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. I think like to me, I see the UAE and Qatar as very extremely tourism focused in countries. Obviously, they have oil reserves too, but Saudi Arabia is a major player in the region, and also, it is trying to build a tourism portfolio while being like a absolutely massive oil supplier. It might be the world's biggest off the top of my head. And just, obviously it has a much more important geopolitical role in the Middle East than either the UAE or Qatar. And I don't know. I think that in a weird way, even though they have more revenue to work with than either of those other two countries, I think their priorities are different as a result, and they're probably less willing to spend all that money in tourism in the same way.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is the world's largest oil producer, just based on a brief check. If I was gonna expect, the Saudi Pro Soccer League existed before Ronaldo arrived, and it will continue to exist long afterward. I don't think that they're going to be selling Newcastle anytime soon. I think that in terms of things like Formula One, I think that will continue to be a big part of the Middle East culture. I think Saudi Arabia will continue to be a huge partner with Formula One. So I think some of these things will stabilize, even if it's to not the same profile that it is now. But, I would be shocked if 1 year from today LIV still exists. I'd be absolutely shocked. In danger. Yeah. It is in danger because it has achieved no goal. It's just one of the most irrelevant and unrecognized sporting events that happens like almost every week, and nobody cares. And to be like very blunt about it, nobody cares. And I think we're going to see a lot. I saw a headline that the PGA is now exploring additional pathways to bring LIV golfers back to the PGA Tour. I expect to see many, many more players take that pathway if it is available. Bryson DeChambeau might be the last holdout just because he seems to be entirely unpersuaded by any motivation other than his own vibes. But he might be playing a bunch of tournaments by himself when this is all said and done.
I honestly, hear me out. I would be way more likely to watch LIV Golf. It was just Bryson DeChambeau. It's just him and his YouTube channel. Just hitting an 18-hole course over and over again.
I'm pretty soon LIV Golf will be so unpopular that Bryson DeChambeau will just be able to buy out LIV Golf and turn it into his own YouTube channel.
See, there's a brilliant business idea. It may not increase Saudi Arabia's brand, but Bryson DeChambeau's brand will absolutely increase. Yeah, that's a great business. I think we should pitch that to him.
I'm going to get right on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think this is really interesting, and I'm really, we were here for the rise of it, and I really, really am looking forward to the day when we can document the fall of it, because
that'll be incredible pod. That's our first sports washing true win. The day LIV shutters will be like, we collectively have outlasted this.
We're gonna come on the pod with kazoos and party hats and champagne.
Literally, this podcast has lasted longer than LIV Golf.
Yeah, that's just true. I hope so.
It will.
Yeah, I hope so.
It has been around longer. It's so funny to me. I think that ultimately this comes down to the Saudis did overextend themselves in a way that, like, obviously I don't support their taking over sports or movies or anything in any meaningful way. But from a business analysis perspective, they overstretched their portfolio. They made decisions too late or made ill-judged decisions in other situations. And now I do think that, like, their genuine influence on the sporting world, it feels to me, will always be the third most important of those three Gulf states that are involved in the sports world, which obviously, given their financial clout, is surprising. But I think they just got in. I think they got in too late, and they got in too desperately and tried to crowbar themselves into situations where they could have made better decisions. I do think that, like, Newcastle will probably stick around, but, like, I think most likely they're going to try to, ramp up the cost of Newcastle and then sell it within 10 years. That would be my guess.
Or get rid of these other ventures and focus more specifically on making Newcastle better.
But I just don't think, I really don't think that they can, given the controls given the controls the Premier League have put in, I think they missed their window to, like, elevate that squad to the point where they actually can keep up with the revenue, where, like, the revenue it produces can keep it going at the level it needs to be. Like, that team cannot bring in an Erling Haaland.
Right.
It's never going to happen.
Because City made all their biggest moves before that was really being regulated. Yeah. That's a good point. So
now, I mean, City makes so much money that, like,
they can afford it.
They can keep doing it. Like, I don't know if I believe everything is fully legitimate that's happening there, but, like, they make so much money that it would not shock me.
Can we circle this podcast all the way back around to where we started?
Sure.
I would like to ask you a question, John. The season ends May, whatever, and Arsenal finish second and City win.
Yes. That's a great question.
In early June, the City gets like a 30-point deduction for their 100 charges of financial fair play, and Arsenal are crowned the Premier League champions. Will you accept that, like, 100% as a trophy? Like, how will you feel about that if that happens? Now that, like, in a very real way, you would be the team to benefit directly from that if it happened this year.
I mean, I would feel sad that we didn't earn it. But at the same time, like, City basically have financially doped their way to multiple titles for years and years and years, while smaller clubs are getting docked left and right for all kinds of minor infractions. These charges have been sitting there in arbitration or whatever they are
a long time,
for 3 years.
Yeah.
It has been 3 years that the Premier League has basically been like, and the reality is City did all of it, and their legal team is just frying the Premier League. That's what's happening behind back doors. I can't prove anything, but we all know it's happening. And that's just the reality, is, like, City broke the rules and are basically leveraging the Premier League for all they're worth. And I just still don't know that they'll ever be punished for it. I really don't. But if they did, I would accept the trophy because they don't deserve it. So
that'd be a very crunching tackles way to win.
Again, I would be sad if we didn't earn it on the field. It would feel like only a half trophy.
You'd much rather win it fair and square and then have them be docked so many points that they also get relegated along with Tottenham.
That would be the greatest experience of my life. It would be the greatest experience of my life.
John, the listener may have thought that, we've gotten here to the end of a podcast, and the listener may be thinking, wow, we made it an entire podcast with no mention of sports gambling. And you would almost be right.
You'd almost
because
be right.
We have not talked about sports gambling. However, we would like to invite all of our listeners to do some homework. I know a couple of times ago we told you all to go and read McKay Coppin's article about sports gambling in the Atlantic. Well, this time we are asking you to watch a video that I teased on the podcast at the beginning of this year, which is a debate that took place 2 weeks ago between Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, who most likely would have not raised the subway prices on the people because he's a better man than Mikey Sherrill. He debated conservative political commentator David French on the question of, should we ban online sports betting? It was moderated by Chuck Todd. It is available on YouTube. The channel that is hosting it is the University of Chicago Institute of Politics channel. The video is called Counterpoint: Should we ban online sports betting? And we will also have a link to the video in our show notes. So please, by the next time that we podcast in a couple weeks, please watch this video, because John and I are we're going to go into it. We're going to take some notes, and we're going to kind of talk through the arguments that are presented, what we think about them. We're going to react to this debate. I've watched it already one time all the way through. I think it was an interesting conversation. If you like the kind of things we talk about here on this podcast, you're really going to enjoy it. I think both David French and Governor Christie are two just very engaging and interesting personalities and thinkers. I have a lot of respect for both of them. And so I'm excited to, next time we podcast, join in on this discourse and this dialogue. And I hope that you all will also take the time to watch it in advance as well, so that we can have just a really fun conversation about it next time we pod.
Yep, exactly. And we're gonna immediately afterwards start trying to engagement farm David French and Chris Christie. No, that's a joke. No.
We can. You're welcome to try.
So funny, yeah, but we're really looking forward to it. Obviously, we've talked about it. Gambling as a whole, a good amount, but I do think it'll be fun to engage. Like, this is going to become, I think, a real talking point in the broader culture about where this is going. It's going to become a real talking point in American politics, and I think that matters. And for that reason, having this conversation happen on a huge stage is awesome, and we welcome that and are looking forward to talking about it, as well as 2 weeks after that, a special World Cup episode that we are very excited to show you guys.
The much teased and must anticipated Crunching Tackles World Cup preview, as only we can do it. It's going to be great.
I mean, we're going to do like many World Cup previews, but this is going to be one of them.
This is our special project. Yes. Yeah. This is the project we've been working on for a while. So much great content to come. So please make sure you're subscribed, make sure that you're following, stay tuned, share it with a friend. We're just getting started here on World Cup summer, and I can't wait. John, do you have any final words?
No, I mean, it's going to World Cup summer. We're going to be together for the World Cup final and the Odyssey on the same weekend. Yeah. It is just we're going to cook. That's a big weekend. That's one. That one is circled on the calendar. Huge. I'm just waiting for the day that the Odyssey tickets drop so I can just buy an entire row in IMAX. You better hope Gianni Infantino doesn't get his hands on those. They'll be $400 by the time I get them. Yeah. And on that note, we hope that you all continue to be well and be safe, and we'll talk to you later. All right. Cheers, guys.